So in this video I'm going to go over a bunch of the different principles and apply them to each of these posters and talk about it. And I want to begin with introducing the principle of repetition. Repetition pretty much means that if you take visual elements from the design and repeat them, it will make the design stronger and it can help with organization and it'll pull it more together as a unit. So instead of using multiple different shapes for each of these pictures, this designer used the circle that the original logo had. So here's our main element that we look at very first because it stands out and is more contrasting to the rest. And then next you follow the line down through the text to the bottom text and then back up through the pictures. So that's the line of action in this, and the repeated elements are the circle, but also the style of the text, using this green color for headlines or things they want to stand out more, and then using smaller text for the things they don't want to stand out as much. Bah, humbug. This is a really basic poster, and we've got a repetition of word style going down the page, so it's just lines in the same color, but it starts off with a dominant element here at the top, so that's where your eye lands first. You go from the top and then naturally read down, ending with the information about the play. Or reading, marathon reading it looks like. This one uses repetitive elements of a talk bubble, and it's got several different shapes. There's also the same colors that are being used throughout, and a contrasting gray color that is used for where they want you to focus. The first place we look is the picture because it stands out from everything else. It's at the top, it's really colorful. So I look at the picture and then at this and then down and down. Repetition. In this there is repetition of diagonal lines, not only in the type, so here we have a diagonal and then it's the opposite diagonal down here, but also in the picture that they've used in the background. So they've mimicked some of the image in their design. A little bit more diagonal type. The text through here is all the same font, but it's been used in different widths, and they've used a style on the parts that they wanted to stand out more. The colors are consistent and repeated, and they pull the whole thing together. So you should start seeing a pattern here. Again, a really simple design, but we've got some bright colors and it's kept pretty simple, and a repeated shape through the text. A grunge poster, repeated elements of this kind of stripe through here, the texture throughout, pulls it all together, it all has the same look. So I think you probably get the idea. I'm just going to keep flipping through a couple more of these. Here's an example of using proximity with your graphics to make a more obvious place to look. So here they've taken this shamrock and layered them up in different sizes to make one big unit up here. So the shamrock's up here and the type become all one main element. Then they've put this one little guy out here, and that's what draws your eye down to this area. Remember though, I said it's not good to have just two balances out. There is sort of three going on here because we have this element, and that element. So it still feels like this is working well. And then they've used type and lines and type treatment to carry through the repetition. Well, I'll put a slideshow on there and you can take a look at these. It's interesting to note where they use repeated patterns or bits of shape. For example, this one has sort of this curved wing, which might be part of their logo, and then they've mimicked that with a cloud in the background and then this paddle on the top. So there's some real nice curves in here up against straight lines, and that contrast is appealing. And And we'll end on this one because we looked at it already for line of action. There is the repeated element of curves and circles in this, in addition to, of course, the type, treatment, and the color. But we've got our main element, which is a circle, and then the smaller circles with whatever the different things that we use every day are in them. And then instead of just being circles, we also have a circle edge to this block down here, and the bottom curve, instead of having a line, has a curve. So they have taken that element and repeated it throughout the design to make it stronger. With that being said, what you're going to see a lot of is we'll look at some design package examples, because essentially that's what the final project is. But this is taking this will be taking the repeat idea and all of the other things that you've learned really to the extent of as far as we need them to go. I don't know, my brain was just totally blanking out there. A design package has everything that we've been talking about. It's got a color scheme, and with repetition it gets used throughout. There's not all of a sudden bright colors introduced on one of these. It's got the same color scheme and textures, same type treatment, and similar alignment treatments too. I'll hop on to a couple that look a little bit better. Textures, color palette, the overall feel of these makes them feel like they belong together. Here's a pretty basic one of a letterhead, envelope, CD label, CD cover, and business card. So that's an example of how you can take a single graphic and a bit of type treatment and apply it to multiple objects. And really that's all of these are, is they really came up with maybe a logo and a single design, and then you just have to figure out different ways to apply that same design to multiple objects. So here they've taken the little fan that's in the corner and put it either on a corner, well pretty much it's on a corner on everything, but it's the white on purple that really stands out. And so things are either white with a purple accent or purple with a white accent. Kind of the same idea here, that it's reversed out from one to the other. Sorry I can't make these much bigger. These are small graphics. So each one of these they're not very complicated, but because they are consistent in their use of graphic elements and type and color, they look like they belong. They become more sophisticated. So the pieces together, the whole together, is more than the sum of the pieces. Seems like there's a quote to that extent somewhere. I don't know why, but I really like this one. I thought this was a good combination. So each one of these, somebody's consulted a color wheel and looked at the color scheme and then assembled the type to fit the look. Some of them are definitely more involved. But I think you get the idea. That's repetition on a much grander scale, and with it you can create kind of what's known as branding. If you put it on enough things, when somebody sees that combination of type and color and graphics, they'll know that it belongs to whomever it belongs. So this one, the company would have this little green, I don't know if it's like a flower thing, but anytime someone saw that in combination with the colors and the text, they'd know that this belonged to that company.